What's going on, snooker fans, and welcome to this week's Snooker Digest episode where we will be looking at the things that we learned from last week's Xi'an tournament out in China. And firstly, this isn't something so much that we learnt, something that we're just being consistently reminded of, and that is that this guy's pretty good at snooker, isn't he? My word. Last season he made 8 finals, winning 5, losing 3. This season he's played 2 tournaments, he's got to the final in both, winning in Shanghai and then just falling short in the final last week to Kyren Wilson. All of it means is he's back deservedly to world number 1. And what's even more impressive, I think, is his performances at the World Championship in the past couple of years haven't been fantastic. And we kind of talk about the prize money at the World Championship, and essentially if you win or get to a final, you're kind of guaranteed to be very close to getting to the world number 1. But the last 2 World Championships, he's lost first round and then lost in the quarterfinals. But he's still managed to get himself to world number 1, and that's because of his remarkable consistency. And this season, he's just been blitzing everyone. Here's his statistics from this year so far. And he's won over 70% of the frames that he's played this season. And prior to the final against Kyren Wilson, that would have been more like 75%. He's absolutely blitzing everyone. He's going to be in multiple finals this season. He got to 8 last season, like I say. He could be pushing 10 this year by the looks of it. Another fantastic performance, and he is just head and shoulders above everyone else. Someone who isn't finding snooker so easy peasy at the moment, though, is Joe Perry. And although it's unfair to look at his first round loss last week to Jack Lasowski in complete isolation, his form over the past year or so has been really, really poor. So far this season, he has won 2, drawn 2 and lost 3 of the matches that he's played. But then if you look at last season, he only had a win percentage of 35% after winning just 12 of the 34 matches that he played. His recent form has left him currently in 45th place in the rankings, but even more concerningly, he sits in 68th place in the end of season rankings, which would of course see him drop off tour. Now he may get a wild card, but to be honest, even if he was offered one, I'm not completely sure that he would take it up. I don't think he loves snooker, or at least loves playing snooker as much as he used to. And there's clearly something in the Cambridge air, because Neil Robertson also lost first round last week, and that was really disappointing. And all of that sort of pre-season optimism that Neil had, and I certainly had, is kind of faded a little bit after that result. And it really can't happen this season. He's put himself in a really difficult position where he's 27th in the world. He's got a lot of catching up to do to get back into the top 16. Not only just in general, but in time for the Masters, or potentially in time to get a UK Championship seeding. He's got a lot of work to do, and he started the season with some decent results that you would expect him to get, but decent nonetheless. And then he's just been really poor. It's a poor performance against Xi'an. Lots of catching up still left to do. One man who did have a positive week, however, is Daniel Wells, who made it to his 3rd ranking semi-final and his first outside of the UK, which included some big wins as well over Ali Carter, Tepchewan Nu and also Barry Hawkins. And this result also comes about 18 months after O'Sullivan effectively commented that he should just give up trying to be a professional again, so I'm sure there was some extra satisfaction there for Daniel. Question, of course, now is, can he keep getting consistent results over the course of the season? This tournament also was its first staging in China, but there wasn't an awful lot for the home crowd to get behind, with the likes of Ding Junhui and Zhang Anda losing early. But 17-year-old Gong Chenzi had a notable week, with wins over Tom Ford and Si Jiawei en route to reaching the last 16. And then Mark Selby. I also think Mark is pretty close to getting his mojo back this season. Aside from a surprise loss at the Wuhan Open qualifiers, he looked good in Shanghai before throwing away a healthy advantage against Shaun Murphy in the semi-final. And again, I think he played pretty well last week, just losing out to Dave Gilbert in the last 16. He's definitely not back to his absolute best, but I think there's been promising signs for Mark and his fans in the first couple of tournaments this season that would suggest that a tournament isn't far away from him. Then, just like Judd Trump, Ronnie O'Sullivan continues to look like a man who you fancy to win pretty much any time he steps out onto the table. I don't think he's played particularly well either last week or in Shanghai earlier this year. But he still reached a final and a semi-final in his first 2 tournaments, and I'd have a strong suspicion that he'll be winning, or at least getting very close to winning, the new tournament in Saudi Arabia next week. And then finally, Kyren Wilson. Very classy way to begin his tenure as world champion for the first time. I mentioned in my Shanghai Masters review, after he was pummeled by Zhao Yulong, that I still fancied him to be a very good world champion. And this is a statement victory for him, particularly by beating both Ronnie O'Sullivan and Judd Trump to clinch the title. I do think he was given a bit of a lifeline in the last 16 when Jimmy Robertson really should have beaten him. But he grabbed that second chance with both hands, and that should settle him completely for the rest of the season. He's never won multiple ranking events in the same season before, but he's given himself an excellent chance of putting that right this term. But ultimately, I think this week should silence anyone who might still be out there that could suggest that Kyren Wilson's world title was anything more than a fluke, which clearly it wasn't.